Ea! Salve, gente minha, Cláudia Rica de cá, do Grupo Quantum, da Quantum House, co-editora da Universidade Quantum, as nossas empresas, apresentando uma entrevista absolutamente especial com o Dr. Pete Walker. A entrevista está em inglês, nós gravamos no comecinho de agosto, e para o lançamento desse livro. Em bom português, Estresse Pós-Traumático Complexo, indo de sobreviver a prosperar. Pete Walker é uma sumidade, é aclamado mundialmente por seus livros. E no dia 10 de agosto, dia dos 20 anos do Método Quantum, a nossa pesquisa científica de comportamento, nós estamos celebrando 20 anos e trazendo para vocês um autor de envergadura. Dia 10 de agosto, nós vamos ter um encontro presencial com saúde física garantida e saúde mental e emocional, porque você vai se surpreender com a abordagem, as técnicas e aquilo que ele mesmo disse para você na entrevista a seguir, que as pessoas dizem, nossa, eu estou há 10, 20, 30 anos e nunca consegui endereçar, e aqui resolveu. Por favor, não acredite em mim, busque seu exemplar, ou no lançamento ou no próprio site quantumhouse.com e resiliência.com.br, porque é um texto que faz a gente respirar e saber que tem caminho para a gente superar. As coisas não deram muito certo e às vezes deram bastante errado, foram muito difíceis. Além de você não ser o que te aconteceu, o caminho para se restaurar está sendo honradíssimo com esse grande autor que deu bola para nós, deu bola para o Brasil. Sabe por quê? Porque eu acho que a gente merece. Eu espero vocês e, por favor, Pete Walker, From Surviving to Thriving, de sobreviver a prosperar. Obrigada. This is an honor for Quantum House and Quantum University to have your book being published here. We have the official launching on August 10th for the graphics and stuff. So here we have it, the small one, but it's going to be a big format one because we'd rather this one to study and read it bigger. So there is a big one. It's just the same cover, you know, as in English.
I love it. It looks great. I was talking before you came on, just in case you weren't coming on, and I think your cover looks better than my cover.
Well, this is Portuguese as well. Yeah, we played a little bit with the colors and gave this complex thing, and then Estresse Pós-Traumático. And we've translated disorder as disorder. So it's very beautiful, very well done, very good, well revised. So we have some questions, Pete. First of all, I'd like to open this to our public and our people. Thank you very much, Dr. Pete Walker. He's the author of some books. He's a psychotherapist, a licensed therapist, and you're an anthropologist, right, Pete?
I've studied a lot of anthropology, yes. I don't have a degree in it, but yeah.
Yeah. And so in how many countries is this book now with Brazil?
It's in Taiwan, in Chinese, it's in German, in Germany, it's in Spain, in Spanish, and it's in process to be in Russian, and then Portuguese.
And it's in Mexico as well.
Yeah, well,
All Spanish then.
It's Spanish, yeah.
Okay, then Portuguese.
Yeah.
So, Pete, some of the questions that came, curiosity about how you ended up writing such a book based on childhood trauma, and this set of resources that seem to be very practical for therapists and people to survive. And how do you see the most important thing to survive inner pain and difficulties that the post-traumatic stress, the CPTSD, from surviving to thriving helps people? What is the most important thing in your opinion, or set of them?
Okay, so there's two questions there. How did I come to write it, and then what's the most important?
Yeah.
So I just had a passion for understanding myself since I took psychology in freshman year in college, but I got myself in various kinds of trouble and had to go in the army, and then I traveled around the world, hitchhiked around the world, and I was always looking for answers. I began with a spiritual quest to try and find enlightenment, which I really think was really funny to think that a human being can become enlightened and not have any pain in life. And so I wound up in Australia and did a social work degree, and I just started looking for answers. And I just tried everything. I was just passionate about it. You might even say it was a psychological addiction. And some things worked and some things didn't work. And I've been doing that my whole life. And, you know, by the time I got to 50, I had I had a program where I was using a variety of tools, and it was working for me. And I was doing therapy, and it was working for my clients. And it was unlike anything I'd seen, and it was much more complicated than stuff I saw. And I just thought I needed to start sharing this with people. So I started writing articles about it, and I put them up on my website for free. And people would write and go, "Oh my God, you know, that's helped me so much. And finally I understand what's going on with me, and these are tools I can use." And so I wrote one article after another until I had enough for a book, and I put it together with a book, and I thought I'd be happy if it sold 100 copies, and it's sold 100,000 now, which is mind-blowing to me. And I get an incredible amount of feedback from all over the world. Last week, Botswana and Bahrain and Slovenia, of just how helpful it is to people. So I know it's a syndrome now, and I know it's a syndrome that happens in families like mine, where you're not loved, where you don't get, I think the deepest thing is not that emotional connection from at least one parent, where they care about you, and they're happy you're there. They see you as a miracle. You know, as I see my child, she's like, wow, where'd you come from? Suddenly there's this person. And every kid I've met early in life, they're alive. They're happy to be here. They're interested. They're curious. But if you get into one of these complex PTSD families, you get hit for doing that, yelled at, shamed for doing that, or you just get ignored. Just being ignored, period. Having nobody to interact with is the seeds of this complex PTSD. You start to adopt a perfectionistic attitude to yourself. It's kind of like the only chance maybe to get love is if I get perfect.
Yeah.
And so people get stuck with that, and their super ego becomes the inner critic, just takes over the psyche and judges everything they do is not enough, and is looking for perfection. And it just grows and grows and grows until you do the kinds of things that I've talked about in my book.
Yeah, we have a head of research here in Quantum Lab. You know, I'm the author of Quantum Assessment, which is a very nice tool for resiliency and people. And one of the guys here asked, there are the 4 Fs, fight, fly, freeze, and phone, as a defense response. I've seen in the book the proper healthy way of having these 4 responses, like dealing with life. But he asked about, and I saw how it goes over and gets a fight response of being, you know, needing a hug and never getting one, and being more angry and being more alone. So this is very well written in the book. But his question was, in what measure are those 4 defenses good or normal to any people? I get upset with my sister, or I get upset with something at work. I can, you know, have one of those 4 responses, and that's not abnormal. That's even part of the psyche of our structure. That was his question, Luis Fernando Miller.
Yeah, so I do address that in the beginning of the chapter on the 4 Fs. And they're all normal. It's kind of like, if the way I measure my own health and the health of clients is, I can invoke all those 4 responses have good and proper times to be used. When I need to fight, in other words, to say no to you being abusive to me, or the positive side of fight is being assertive, just having your turn, being able to speak up for yourself. So in moderation, that's a wonderful thing. But if that's all you can do, then you become narcissistic. And to the degree that you're justified, you're very narrow and you're trapped in that one response.
Good.
So a healthy person can fight when needed in a fair way, in a non-shaming or contemptuous way. But they can also do flight. And flight is the obsessive compulsive thing, if that's the only thing you can do, then you are constantly in motion, constantly doing, thinking all the time or doing all the time. And your life becomes very narrow. But thinking and doing are good things in moderation. You know, we need to accomplish things. We need to get things done. We need to be able to think in a creative kind of way. The third one, the freeze, is on the positive level. It's the relaxation response. It's going to sleep. It's the parasympathetic nervous system. Like the flight type is in the sympathetic nervous system, always going on adrenaline. The freeze type is just laid back, spaced out, dreamy, maybe taking downer drugs. And the freeze type will just do that all the time and not develop the other sides. Mm-hmm. And then the fourth type is the fawn type, which is the type that finds like the way that they could be safer in their family and they could get some love and attention was to be helpful. And if that's the only way you can get it, then you become a fawn and you're all the time, you're just helping people. You're codependent. Mm-hmm. So I'll do a brief sketch of how I first conceptualized this. The child grows up in this family. Nobody's paying attention to them, or they're paying negative attention to them all the time. And the first response we're wired for is the first thing kids will say when that happens. It's not fair, or no. It's to fight back. Uh-huh. But if you have abusive parents or non-caring parents, you get punished for that severely, and you learn that you can't fight anymore. So you give up on the fight. You give up on your assertiveness. So you try the next thing. The next thing in the hierarchy is the flight. So if you're attacked by another animal, you might fight for a moment, say in the jungle, but if you see that you can't win, they're bigger than you, then you run away. So many people that have CPTSD have a memory of like, life was terrible and unfair, so they ran away from home. But if you're 3 years old and you run away from home, that's scarier, that's so scary. So you come back and then you do symbolic flight. You develop maybe something like ADHD. Mm-hmm. You're running around all the time. You're busy. You can't sit still. You're symbolically flying. And if you can't do that, if you get in trouble for that, then you go in your mind and you're just thinking all the time, and perseverating and worrying. If that doesn't work for you, if somehow they short circuit that, then you go into freeze, which is the toughest one. It's the response where the lion chases you and you try and fight, you can't get away. If you can't beat it, so you fly, you flee, you can't get away, and then it gets you in its jaws and you freeze. You do the collapse response, you just give up so that you can die without pain. And so many kids, there's nothing that they can get away with in the family, and they just go in their back room with their phone or the TV, and it's all just escaping into a lot of right brain kind of material. And then there's the fourth type, the fawn type. Alice Miller calls it the drama of the gifted child. And it's often the gifted child that has an advanced gift of empathy and compassion, and they become they switch roles. They become the parent to the emotional parent. They care for, they listen to, they're maybe the therapist for, and they give up all their own needs. They never disagree, and they become the fawn. So to the degree you're trapped in one, your life is narrow and you don't have much diversity in your life. And to the degree you get recovery, you can be helpful when you need to as a fawn. You can rest and space out, meditate as a freeze. You can be busy and you can think things through and you get things done as a flight. You can stand up for yourself as a fight. So that's the idea we were going for.
The spectrum of being healthy with that, resourceful and not getting crazy and detached from oneself, right?
Yes, exactly.
Does meditation, do you use meditation with your patients, clients? Meditation help them?
Yeah, I encourage them to do meditation, and I use a lot of guided meditations where I'm talking to them in a relaxed voice and helping them relax their body, and a lot of times I'll use that for the inner child work.
Yeah, we are putting here, whenever this goes out with translation, we are putting here your website and everything so people can find you and the books in all languages. Mentioning narcissists, we have lots of clients that were pairs with narcissists. And there is a question from Raoni, those questions here from Rafael Buzuti and Miller, now Raoni Roku. She asks if there is a assertive way of disarming a narcissistic mother as an adult, if there is a way of being more in touch and not having flashbacks because of being in touch with a narcissistic mother. So I would take a ride in this question and ask about narcissists, real cluster B people, covert narcissists and narcissists who really dissociate. They cannot bond for real. It seems to be real. And it looks like CPTSD victims are more, or codependents as well, are more prompt to engage relationship with this kind of people. So if there's any word, because people are breaking up with narcissists or recovering from that, or have, family members that are narcissists, is there an assertive way to deal with that, to protect oneself, and to develop this self-love and healing path that you would like to comment a bit for us, Dr. Pete?
Yeah, I could probably talk for 2 hours on this.
Please do it. We have all the day here. I have the weekend. Come on.
This is this is what makes me feel the most enthused about my work, and the most gratifying is helping people get away from toxic narcissists. There's a spectrum for narcissism, and we can all be a little narcissistic here and there, but we're not a narcissist if we can see it and we can say, hey, I'm sorry, I've been talking the whole time and didn't let you talk, or I got mad at you and I was contemptuous with you, I'm sorry. But, an inveterate narcissist, a dyed-in-the-wool narcissist, they always have to be right. They're never sorry. And if you got that kind of narcissist, like what's called personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, you got to get away from them. They don't change.
That's it, right.
Most therapists consider them untreatable. That has been my experience. And
mine too.
There's a wonderful website called reddit.com/r/raised-by-narcissists. And these are people that have been raised by narcissists.
Sorry, would you spell the first word? Reddit.com? What is the first?
Reddit, REDDIT.
REDDIT. Reddit. Reddit com 2 Ds. Reddit.com/r/raised by
narcissists.
Raised by narcissists. Okay, I got it.
And it's a brilliant site, and more people are doing what's called no contact. And I'm a real preacher of no contact. And I've seen over the 40 years I've been doing work, people get almost nowhere when they're trying to change the narcissistic mother or the narcissistic father.
Their own.
To the degree, huh?
Their own narcissistic mother or father.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Or their narcissistic husband or their narcissistic wife. And until they get away and go no contact, or really decrease the amount of contact, no amount of work gets them out of being in a permanent flashback into the freeze response and the fawn response. And I've just seen this over and over and over and over. And so there's a wonderful book called Becoming the Narcissist's Nightmare. And it's on Amazon, and people really swear by all the good stuff.
By whom,
Her last name is Arabi, A-R-A-B-I.
Ah, see, Sharida Arabi.
Yeah, right.
I like her a lot. I made videos on her stuff. You have many fans on that field, like Richard Grannon talks a lot about you. It's an English guy.
Yes.
We've brought Sam Vaknin to Brazil, the guy that first named, he's a narcissist, but he wrote about, and he's the first one who named or suggested no contact 25 years ago. He's a narcissist, and he said, run to the mountains, just go away. You can't help it.
That's good.
I know you
It's
well.
like science. I mean, and not only run, delete their phone number. Do not talk to them. Do not delete
It's
their
like, no,
email.
but if they need something, if they're sick, they call the hospital. You have nothing to do with that. Just go away.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, there's
I mean,
another author that I would like to mention that mentions you a lot, and it's the most serious person I've ever met. She's called Lisa A. Romano. She's an American from New York, an enlightened woman, a good soul, a good-hearted, and very serious technically. I mean, she's not psychologist, but I'm from the field of psychotherapy clinics and neuroscience, but she's a life coach that's better than many. She's just awesome and serious, and really, I love her. And she refers to you a lot. So I came to you because of those people.
oh, okay. I've heard of all the other people you mentioned, but I will check her out. I haven't heard of her.
Lisa Romano, Richard Granum, these people love you too. Well, that's not very hard because this is just... So this narcissistic, the covert narcissists, these people cannot make connection inside. They seem to be there, but they are not, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's harder to see. It's hard, they're tricky to identify.
Mm-hmm.
I see in my own recovery as a recovering codependent, I just get better and better at recognizing the various shades and types of narcissists. And the covert ones can be particularly tricky. Some of them get really good. Maybe they read a couple of self-help books and they know what it's like to be sincere. So they can be a little sincere.
They are artists,
and maybe
right?
listen to you a little bit in the beginning. But once they hook you, it's going to be all about them. And they're going to use contempt, this nasty cocktail of anger and disgust to make you feel ashamed and afraid. And they'll enslave you. And that is often what happens to us as a kid. I was enslaved by my mother with that nasty cocktail. And then I had friends like that, male and female, until I started to understand this. And I see people get stuck and not go very far in their recovery, even with just like one phone call a month with a narcissist. And not, with the original narcissist, whether that's the partner or there's usually a parent if you got a partner.
Yeah. Well,
so, and then I see people slip in their recovery and they go, I'll go back and he's being nice now, and they just go down so quickly, before they're anxious and depressed very quickly. Or they go and visit for a weekend, this narcissistic parents, and they come back and they're just like, they went away, they're all bright-eyed, they come back and they've got the flu, their back's out. It's like, that's why I say it's kind of like science. I've just seen it over and over during the years. And it's what Judith Herman, who invented the term complex PTSD, it's what she says is the first step is you got to get safe. And safe is get the narcissist out of your life.
So for us codependents, what's most important to work? I mean, self-love, having boundaries. We're kind of guilty because we have CPTSD and come from dysfunctional families. Some of us grow better in just saying what we want and wanting what we say and being congruent enough. But some of us are confused. We're not very clear. But so this self-love and putting boundaries. What is the most important thing in this inner healing and inner, strengthening for people who are now dealing with narcissists, separating from narcissists or needing to do that? What would you tell them to get strong? Well, okay, go no contact, but you go no contact and when they turn inside, they feel a little bit, whatever, empty or I don't know. So what would you say to these people so that they can strengthen themselves and trust the path that's slowly, but it's effective to go that way, to recover and be there for yourself? I mean, and from that on, is that true love outside there after a narcissist if you recover from them?
Do you know how CPTSD is sometimes called developmental trauma disorder? They couldn't get CPTSD in the DSM-5 here.
Not yet.
Changed the name to developmental trauma disorder. And so it's interchangeable. It means because you are not allowed to be yourself in this family when you're growing up, you don't develop a healthy self. And so the worst developmental trauma is you don't have a positive relationship with yourself. Whether you're a fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, you've got just a really negative fight. I won't say fight. Whether you're flight, freeze, or fawn, a negative relationship with yourself. You know you're perfectionistic. You negatively notice yourself all the time, and you worry and are afraid whenever you make a mistake or you're not perfect. And so the key thing to do is to build this positive relationship with yourself. And there's two ingredients: building your self-compassion and your self-protection. You didn't get the unconditional positive regard, unconditional love from any parent, from any adult. You got to become the key source of it for yourself. Mm-hmm. Very lifetime, gradual work. Mm-hmm. And that's the yin side. The yang side is you got to become self-protective. We talked about the outside of self-protection, getting away from the narcissist. But the biggest job is becoming self-protective from the inner critic, the toxic inner critic.
From the mouth in, not from the mouth out, from the mouth in, right?
Yes. And in that regard, I like to talk a lot about toolbox number 3, the inner critic toolbox in the back of the Complex PTSD book. Mm-hmm. And if you look at that, there's 2 things I ask people to, in the beginning of therapy, do. Print out the 13 flashback management steps, which is toolbox 6. And it's in chapter 8. And then to print out toolbox 3, which is 14 responses to the inner critic. And the inner critic will beat you up 14 different ways. It'll scare the crap out of you, or it'll make you just hate yourself and be ashamed of yourself. So whether that's perfectionism, all or none thinking, negative noticing, drasticizing, catastrophizing. So in that list are the things you can say to yourself when you catch yourself negatively noticing yourself, attacking yourself, hating yourself, being ashamed of yourself. So what I'm teaching a lot these days and work with clients over and over and over with is this 2-step process. You're inside yourself and you hear this voice saying, "Oh, I'm so ugly." And usually it's not you, it's on you. It's become your identity. I'm so ugly. You're working towards getting to a place of being really pissed off when you hear that. Who the hell taught me that? What a terrible thing to say. I wish I could go back. This is where I use meditation. I wish I could go back in time, bring some friends with me, real friends, and put a gag on their face whenever they were telling me I was stupid or ugly or worthless. And so when you're having with your inner critic, you notice the inner critic and you go, "Shut up, don't talk to me that way." And it's important to get your anger back. I did the cognitive behavioral side of it is to just do thought stopping, but without adding the emotional part of being really angry that you're brainwashed against yourself, it takes a long time to develop. So I'm so mad that you did this to me. And then you turn into the inner child and you go, "You poor thing, I wish I could be there. I would just pick you up, hit like that. I love you even more because you're suffering. It was not your fault. I'm here to help you as much as I can to see that you're eminently lovable. You were born with a good heart. Every child is." Oh, when I started doing this, I was doing it like 50 times a day for about a year or 2. Shut the hell up, and I would often name it my parents. Helen and Charlie, this is you. And Sister Jean Therese, you Catholic nun, you were the worst too. You were that. I can't. How could you do this to me? You were so cruel. Just get away from me. Get out of my head. And then shifted to, you're such a beautiful little boy. You're smart. You're big-hearted. You're resilient. Look at you survived that. Wow, what an amazing thing. And over and over and over, so that you're building this positive, big developmental arrest, a positive relationship with yourself. Lifetime work, never perfectly done, but over time, you gradually start noticing that your flashbacks they're less often, they're shorter, and they're less intense. And it can be two steps forward, one step backwards. Every once in a while you get a really big flashback, but you just get better and better at managing it. Mm-hmm. And most flashbacks, as you're getting into serious recovery, are started by that inner critic. You know, why did you smile at that man that smiled at you walking down the street? What's wrong with you? You're so mean. Shut up.
You have nothing good to say. Just shut up. We're going to put you down.
Go. Yeah, that was a big one. And
of
swearing
course.
is really good. Swearing is really good. It's kind of like, it was usually the province of the parents, but you're not allowed to.
It's freeing, right? It's freeing.
It's very freeing.
From a program, I mean. I would like to offer you as a little, not a little gift, but I'm recording this in English. I made this 14 attacks of the inner critic, a meditation of 2 minutes in my voice, your text. It's a 2 minutes thing, and I tell them each day you listen to one and repeat 3 times a day after meals. The other day you listen to the next. Of course they don't obey me, patients, they do whatever they want, they listen to all of them. But then they begin the exercise, which is like repetition is important for me to keep saying, well, when you make a mistake, that doesn't make you a mistake. It's a punctual thing. So the things of the 14, if you don't address the 14 attacks, nothing else you do will work because it comes back and puts us down again. When I read this, I said, that's right. So I recorded 2 minutes because they are in CPTSD. They don't have much time to be, they're too anxious to be meditating. But if you have 2 minutes there, and then after half an hour, you have them all. But every day doing, they begin to say, I'm afraid, but I'm not in danger. I have a big body. Yeah, I'm not what happened to me. So this stuff is just precious, Pete Walker, really precious. It really heals. So that's why the Japanese vase is your work for me. It's this work of Pete Walker, and it's like there are the golden the golden art over what's cracked. That art makes it not cracked anymore. So resources, self-help, humor, knowledge, whatever, doesn't split away anymore. You put yourself together, literally, as an art, but authorizing yourself to be lovable. And this is so touchy. This is so beautiful. This is kind of a spiritual thing that we just thank you so much for having done it, to organize it that way. I have thousands of patients learning this and going to your website and to my website at Quantum House, or my books on resiliency. And now, thanks God, with CPTSD, from surviving to thriving, in good Portuguese.
I'm really moved that you get that so deeply. It is so important, and thousands of repetitions to just change the programming of your brain. And it does work, but it takes time.
Yeah.
And the broken heart repaired is stronger than the heart that's never been broken. And I just really know that. I believe it, but I know it. I've seen it over and over.
Yeah.
And this work is a way of reparenting yourself and giving yourself the skills and strengths that were never given to you. And it's all based on this foundation of self-compassion. I love you. I'm on your side no matter what. I know you're a good person. You can make a mistake. That doesn't make you a mistake, like you said. I'm really sorry we're at the end of our time, and I have another appointment at 12:10, but I'm so glad to have done.
Just to close, wrap it up this here, we are finishing the pandemonium, not the pandemia, but the pandemonium. What do you think is the challenge? That's a question from Elio Rojas. What's the challenge for reinventing our businesses? People lost things or are lost themselves. There are politics around this virus or stuff, but how do you think we are going to recreate society, business, entrepreneur, and whatever? And what is the trauma that we are getting in this pandemic now, in your opinion, please? How do we recover from this phase?
I mean, it's an enormous subject, and I do have to, start in 7 minutes with somebody else. But it's not my expertise. But I like to see. I'm very much into grieving the losses of childhood, being mad about that it happened, crying, and we need to do that about this. This reminds us of how abandoned we were, because we're shut in and we're got masks on, and it's a really, really tough time, and it's a time to practice. It's like, this is going to give me more flashbacks than normal. How can I be there for myself? How can I be mad at the multinationals that created a terrible atmosphere that makes this disease even worse? And how can I just reinforce to myself that I love you even more? It's a hard time. Nothing lasts forever, and I got to protect myself from drasticizing and catastrophizing, watching too much news, because there's still a lot of great stuff going on.
Yeah.
In this country, the Black Lives Movement is really moving, and there's just so many people getting involved with it, and some real changes are happening. There's a lot of good people. Most people are good.
So this is one thing, very good thing that's happening. You live by Zoom with Quantum House. Brazil, São Paulo is a house for you. You're always welcome. Launching this beautiful book on the 10th of August. We are more protected and more in love and compassion and good treatment to one another as well. Dr. Pete Walker.
Thank you, Claudia. Thank you all you people that are out there, and anybody with CPTSD, my heart goes out to you, and you can do it. You can really rebuild this relationship with yourself. And I see people that get to a certain level of recovery, they're more recovered than normal people that haven't had this, because the culture itself traumatizes so many people into being in a very small part of themselves. Mm-hmm. When you get your emotional intelligence back, you're a richer, more adaptable person, and you have a better life. So I wish that for you all. Thank you so much.
I invite you for a weekly program on the radio here. We could talk every week about marriage, about relationship, about healing. Thank you very much, Dr. Pete.
I wish I had time. If it ever slows down, I might take you up.
Okay.
Thank you, Abilia. Bye-bye. You take care.
Goodbye. You take care too.
Lots of love.
Thank you very much.